We have the names of the 12 tribes. This is like the pad on your phone. It has an alphabet. And so some have theorized that it would light up and spell the answer. Now, I just kind of like that idea. There's no way to prove that. I just like it.
I had discussion during the weekend with some friends, and this came up. Urim and Thummim, the stones. What can you tell us about? And then casting lots. Is this stopped? And there was also in I think
it's now called the stock market. Okay, so no, this is a fun question actually. Since we don't have a high priesthood and all this sort of stuff, we don't have an Urim and a Thummim. The Urim and the Thummim were methods of, it's going to sound horrible, but let me unpack it a little bit. They're methods of divination given by God, specifically to Israel. Lots of methods of divination were condemned by God very forcefully. So the two stones with the breastplate and the ephod, and all, you'll see passages where David, First Samuel 23, when David has two questions for God. Bring the ephod here, I got a question. Well, what you can gain from that, it was probably the upper part of the priest's garment in which were the Urim and the Thummim. So you get these yes or no answers. Okay. So, we don't have to obviously rely on anything like that. There's no sense that there was intended continuity there or anything like that. But that's what they were. Casting lots is a little more familiar throughout the ancient Near East. There were all sorts of methods, and this is one of them. And again, this is kind of like it's kind of like the Numbers 5 thing, or the incident with Jacob and Laban, where the cattle spotted and not, and all that kind of thing. So you'll often see God give people these things to do, and the assumption is, are you going to really trust me with the outcome? Okay, so there's still an issue of, I've told you to do this. Essentially put your money where your mouth is. That sort of thing. So there are incidences like this, and some of the practices are a little more familiar than others. But there was a long-standing tradition in the Hebrew Bible. There's a number of passages where the lot is in the hand of the Lord. That God will speak His will through this method. It was given to our forefathers, and we're still going to use it. They do this when they were replacing Judas. They cast lots and things like that. Now some will say they take votes. Well, everybody knows what lot casting is. Okay, it's not a primitive democracy, and they don't have voting booths. Look, they're casting lots. They got a small number of names. They're going to whittle down the list. Joshua does it, to find out Achan's sin and whatnot. So it was a very familiar sort of thing. What's curious about the Urim and the Thummim is that they only really work, or at least here's how the theory goes. Urim and Thummim seem to be binary opposites. Okay, so they really only work with yes and no questions. But if you actually read through some of these conversations where people ask God questions, you don't get yes or no. And sometimes the ephod is there. And so some people have theorized, and I don't really think there's any good proof for this, but I like the idea because it's entertaining, okay? It's just fun. Somebody should make a graphic video out of this or something. Some people have theorized, well, in those conversations where you can't get a yes and no answer, or at least one's not given, and somebody asks for the ephod, some have theorized that, on the breastplate, what do you have written on you have the 12 gemstones, and what do you have written on them? We have the names of the 12 tribes. So some have theorized, this is like the pad on your phone. It has an alphabet. And so some have theorized that it would light up and spell the answer. Now, I just kind of like that idea. It would be really cool if that was the case, but There's no way to prove that. I just like it, so. Somebody got good marks for being creative that day.